ABC Splash Education Podcast. Find out more at splash.abc.net.au.
In a social media world, telling fact from fiction can be a real issue even for seasoned professionals in the workplace. So how do students go with this? Hi and welcome to the very first podcast for ABC Splash Education. My name's Kalia Colston, Online Content Coordinator with ABC Splash, and together with Annabelle Asprey, Head of Digital Education with the ABC, we're going to be speaking about verifying facts in the classroom and the tools that are out there to help students and teachers. Annabelle, maybe we should start with why you think verification is such a critical issue.
Yeah, the reason why I want to talk about verification of facts. So some people know that I have a history in history teaching, and one of the ultimate, I suppose, challenges that history teachers, but not only history teachers, English teachers and all teachers, whether you're a primary teacher, a secondary teacher, teaching science, is about verifying what you can find on the internet. And I remember when we used to run conferences many years ago and we used to survey teachers about what they thought of the internet and the content offerings that it could give to students, is that there was often a fear from teachers that students would always go to Wikipedia and Google and they don't verify their sources, and this only sort of sets them up for failure.
And I suppose the idea also that students don't go beyond the first screen of a search.
That's it. We've got a very sort of lofty ideal that we think Splash, should be one of those sort of first 5 stops. When they go to search for content, they'll go to Google, they might go to Wiki, then to YouTube, and beyond those sort of, 3 very big offerings, they might not go so much beyond that. So we really want to encourage them to sort of, go beyond those sort of big 3. But then also, if they do come across content available on those services, that we want them to be able to have the skills to be able to verify and scrutinise the material that they come across.
And how new is this process for teachers?
Yeah, I think what has happened is that a student who is in Year 6 this year, they were born in 2001, and the internet was around a good few years before they were born. So they've really sort of grown up in a world where they haven't known anything other than the internet and the variety of material that's on offer. So I guess for teachers, it's been a sort of process of being able to catch up with the students who are in front of them. The nature of the kids don't change, but certainly the world that those kids have grown up in has changed.
As you say, students don't necessarily change, but certainly the technologies that we have access to are just so vast now. Where do you see the opportunities?
One thing that I think is really interesting, taking on that point where the world that these kids are growing up in and will continue to grow up in, is the way that news reporting and the way news is sort of disseminated in their world. And so these kids have grown up in a world where often news reports and news stories often rely upon social media or citizen journalists, and the way that sort of influx of social media does sort of influence and has an impact upon the news cycle. So I actually came across this product that broadcasters use to verify social media accounts and stories that come through on social media, and it's called Storyful. And I came across this when I was doing an editorial leadership program here at the ABC, and the social media guys were talking about Storyful, and I thought, wow, this is just such an amazing tool that teachers should be aware of. And Storyful basically goes through a few examples of the way that they actually verify social media
And I suppose,
accounts.
it's really relevant, isn't it? Because a lot of the tools that are being used in the workplace are actually incredibly useful in schools, because we're all utilising to the best of our ability social media, but it needs to be verifiable. It needs to be believed first before it can be disseminated. And that's the same as what's going on in a school environment, isn't it?
Yeah, particularly. And also, even if you're thinking from the history classroom, it's not sort of saying that evidence from social media, so that might be broadcastable material from YouTube, or it might be a famous person or a historian, making a tweet. Tweets are now sort of, being put into the MLA, the citation guides and all those sorts of things. So it doesn't mean that it's any less sort of credible evidence.
Well, the Library of Congress is trying to sort out how they're going to store tweets and make them available as part of their ongoing collection.
Yeah.
So it's their evidence, their resources.
Yeah, and they're part of the public record. And I think that's the point I keep on coming back to. When you've got YouTube, you've got Twitter, you might have Facebook updates, you might have other social media accounts. They are part of the public record. And that public record is being drawn upon by news services, by journalists, and eventually it's that becomes part of the historical record.
And so Storyful, how does it work and how do you see it applying in that classroom situation?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much that, I'd be encouraging teachers to use Storyful, but what they've got, they do have a blog on their site. So it's storyful.com. And they've got one interesting blog which was written in April in 2012, and it talks about their validation process, especially for those very big, large breaking events. So it might be things like the Boston bombings, it might be events that are happening in Syria or Egypt, things that happen at a very rapid pace when you've got a lot of people on the ground who are tweeting or Facebooking or YouTubing a lot of material. They outline in this blog a really interesting sort of the process that they go through, and I think the process that they go through is the same process that you'd want your students to go through when they're looking at material. Things that they look at as, where is this account registered and where is the uploader been based, judging by their history. They use a really great example there where they were trying to sort of verify a YouTube video which was depicting some Syrian forces entering a town of Dakush, and they used several sort of verification techniques. They noted that the YouTube account had uploaded several videos described as Dakush in recent times. They noted that the videos were depicting the same area, so they used also Google Maps to sort of look at landmarks. Is this really sort of capturing the area? They talk about the title of the YouTube video is in Arabic. You can use a tool such as Google Translate to translate the title. They can place it sort of within context of, who the user is and, where they have been and posted before. And they go through that to, verify the actual account. And then they can say, yes, we know that this is a real account. Yeah.
ABC Splash Education Podcast. Conversations on digital education.
My name's Kalia, here with Annabelle Asprey, Head of Digital Education with the ABC, and speaking today about tools that are out there for teachers and students to verify information online. What message do you think teachers are giving students when they actually engage with some of these tools in class?
The message that's also got to come from the teacher is that, they've got to practice what they preach as well. So we ask students to, verify material and question question the provenance of material, the author, use it in conjunction with other evidence. The teachers also got to practice that as well. And it sort of reminds me, a few years ago, we ran a professional learning session on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia was always seen as the sort of bane of the teacher's existence. The students just go to Wikipedia and, that's not, verifiable and it can change. And we used to do a survey of teachers. Well, how many of you have actually edited a Wikipedia page? Do you understand how a Wikipedia page works? That there are robots that pick up changes and, can sort of actually change it and verify it, sort of rubbish or offensive material that goes in. So I think that's also a really great sort of activity, not only for teachers to do, but for the students to do, for them to sort of gain an understanding of how they can actually change the historical record if they're clever enough.
Yeah, and I think, well, that's true, isn't it, that we can participate. And I mean, that's something that many students would relish, the opportunity to master a topic and then participate on a world stage. And that's what these resources allow. So Annabelle, where can people get started?
I definitely would go along to the storyful.com site and have a look at the blog post, which explains how they validate all of their content on there. And what it means is that you can use that as the example, but you might even in a classroom activity or something that students can do at home is to select a YouTube video on a particular contemporary world event and get them to use the same sort of steps that Storyful team use to apply, to that particular video that they're looking at. I think that's a sort of a good way for them to sort of put into practice. And even though they might not do that with every single sort of, video that they come across or tweet that they come across, it does sort of set up the student for sort of good practice and a good digital citizenship. There's a very good history education clearinghouse site that's run out of the United States called teachinghistory.org. There's lots of teaching materials and best practices. And I know that this does have a history flavour and people know that I love history, but I think a lot of when we're talking about verification of evidence and verification of sources, that applies to so many other subject areas, not just history. And it's also getting the students just to think about the material that's presented in front of them, and that might be in the daily news. And that's the sorts of citizens and, active participants that we want in society.
Thanks, Annabelle. Annabelle Asprey, Head of Digital Education with the ABC. My name's Kalia Colston, and the website, if you want to find out more about ABC Splash and what we have to offer, is splash.abc.net.au. Well, that brings us to the end of our very first ABC Splash podcast. We hope you'll stay tuned for the next instalment. We'll leave you, though, with information about the competition we're running with ABC Splash until mid-November.
ABC Splash is giving away 2 class sets of tablet computers, including 1 for you and 15 for your school. To go on the draw, visit splash.abc.net.au/competition. Answer the question and sign up for the free ABC Splash newsletter. The competition closes November 15, 2013.